I am Iosetta Santini, if you want my full name. And I work at Keena's Mustard Marketing as an account director. And what we do at Keena's Mustard, we are a marketing consultancy, and we specialize specifically in communicating insights and making insights famous. So whether that's with end clients, and we support them with their internal communications, making sure that their work resonates from the insights theme across all the other teams within a brand, or whether that's with an agency, so that's the more like marketing as you know it kind of thing, so the external type of marketing communications. That doesn't matter to us because we do both.
So why is it important to consider how insight is communicated?
Well, I think it's extremely important, especially now where, there's a lot of talk and a lot of AI overall. I think that talking about more and implementing more of the insights communication from a deliverable perspective is incredibly important, because I feel like that's where really humans can add value at this point, where, all we hear about is new tools. But, tools are as good as the next one. And with technology advancing so quickly, I think that we are forgetting that there is a job that needs to be done once the insights are, and once the data has been gathered and processed, what are we left with after? And really, the clients are left with what the agency gave them as a deliverable, as the end of their research work. And I feel like that's where the insights communication part really kicks in. And from a strategic point of view as well, I don't think that there's enough thinking around how can we make sure that the work that we have done doesn't end with a PowerPoint or doesn't end with an email, and truly does make a difference within the organization. So I feel like the main thing that insights communication does is demonstrate the value that the research teams do, and the value and the importance of insights, which I think is often forgotten when it comes to the actionable part.
Do you find that most people focus on insight communication up to the point of the debrief and then not afterwards?
To some extent, yes, I think so, because apart from a few examples where I've seen where that conversation has happened, but there's almost like a team that is dedicated within end clients to drive that, and it's very rare, and it's only like in really big organizations that have the ability to have a team dedicated to that. Otherwise, the agencies, or I feel like the clients at some point, are a little bit guilty of just saying, our job is done as soon as we deliver the piece, as soon as we deliver the research, that's us done. So whether that takes form into an email or a debrief or a PowerPoint, it's almost like secondary. And then where the data ends or the insights end, it doesn't concern them anymore. But then I feel like we hear a lot of apprehension around the future of the industry without really thinking, okay, but what is that I am doing to make sure that I can charge as much as a consultant, for example.
So you mentioned the apprehension around the industry. What are you hearing in terms of that apprehension?
I feel like with so much uncertainty in the last, for as long as I can remember, but probably in the last 5 years, the last year as well, with everything that is going on in the US, like the budget restraints are felt really heavily. And I feel like there's research agencies are feeling under pressure to feel like they are adding that value and that they can charge premium to clients, when clients on the other end are like, I don't have the money, and they want faster and they want better and they want quicker, which is absolutely fine. But then I feel like we're missing a trick by forgetting that where you can add value is by delivering a piece of work at the end that will resonate within the organization, that will make an impact. And that's what you're going to be remembered for. So, for the agency is also a point of differentiation, because not many people are doing that, I don't think. So
not many people are actually communicating insight brilliantly.
Yeah. And not many agencies are offering that services. of providing great deliverables to the client.
And do Keen as Mustard have any models that you use to try and help people with being able to better communicate insight?
Yeah, we do have a framework that we call the FAME framework, funnily enough. The FAME framework stands for Foundation, Audience, Marketing, Execution. And I'm not going to bore you with the ins and outs of each step. But I think the main thing of the FAME model is that it starts from a strategic perspective, and it starts with the strategy before the implementation. Well, I think that part of the issue is that when it comes to marketing or when it comes to internal comms, there's a rush into implementing straight away because we have tight deadlines, because we don't have the budget, because we don't, necessarily want to spend 2 or 3 or 4 weeks doing the research. While, especially talking to researchers, as you can imagine, sometimes it can be surprising that we have to really strongly advocate for the importance of a foundation stage to understand the audience, to understand what their consumption habits are, what are their challenges, what are they drawn to, and to understand, your customers better ultimately, and what are your objectives. Like, people go into implementation without knowing why. Why am I doing this? Is it just another bit of, it's like a tick box exercise. So I feel like by doing the foundation,
which, remind us, is the foundation.
Then you really have an opportunity to get your ducks in a row and make sure that all the way through the E, when you get to execution, then you're going to feel very confident that what you're doing is going to make an impact and is going to be successful.
That's great, Iosetta. So can you share an example of where a well-communicated insight has led to a significant impact, hopefully from a client perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So we worked with a global pharma company, which you might have heard of. They're called Sanofi. They're a big brand. And at that time, they had a new CEO coming on, and he was advocating on what he wanted to bring to the company was to be more human and more kind. And coming from the CEO, obviously, there was a lot of pressure to get the more human, more kind message to resonate throughout the organization more. And, where to start if not from the insights team, where they do hold the humankind knowledge in their hands. So we came on to help the CX team, insights team, to raise their profile, really, and the profile of the great work that they were doing. And what we did is that we branded the insights, and we've implemented a set of communications that were branded, so they were very recognizable, memorable. They were distributed across the organization on a regular basis. And so all the teams that before were quite siloed had access to everything that was going on, all the research that was released in a way that was engaging, because we did videos, we did infographics, white papers, and they were all distributed via newsletters, which helped incredibly with raising the awareness of the team, of the work that they did. And, they had something like 30% click-through on these newsletters, which is 3 times more than industry average, which generally sits around 3%. So the client obviously was over the moon because we managed to breach that gap between the different teams. And so were we, because we love doing good work. So it was successful overall.
Great. So from all your experience, again, particularly working with clients, big organizations, what are some of the most common barriers that you think companies come across when they're trying to activate insight to make it impactful?
Well, I think, first of all, trying to activate insights is already a step in the right direction. If they are trying to activate insights, sometimes I don't think we get that far. But back to what I was saying earlier, I think that strategic thinking is one of the key barriers of implementing a communication strategy that is successful. That is often lacking. So taking the time to understand why you're doing what and what you want to achieve. We never seen anyone that very, very few occasions where we see brands, or like whether it's agencies or brand, like coming to us saying, this is what I want to achieve, and have a very clear set of SMART objectives that leads the following stages. So I think that's the main one. And then I think the lack of confidence I find in being able to say, these are the things that we should focus on, and summarizing them to a few slides. Like, Danny, you've probably seen plenty of PowerPoints that are, 150 slides? What's the longest you've seen?
Yeah, nobody's going to read them.
Exactly. So the confidence of the experts, and feeling confident in being the expert to say, I can tell you in 5 slides what it is that I found that is relevant to your business, and what it is that can drive decisions for your business and your organization in a way that is successful. And yeah, I just think that, we tend to sit in the comfort of lengthy PowerPoints and jargon without taking the time, without considering whether that is actually going to be delivering the final result that we'll want.
In your opinion, why do you think brands and companies need to really pay more attention to customer salience?
Well, if we all agree that we all need to pay attention to the customer, then we have our answer as to why we all need to pay attention to customer salience, and why it's such a crucial, important point of conversation at the moment. There's so much budget and money that goes into research. And again, we were saying budgets are tight, everyone's struggling. What are we doing with those insights and with that budget that has been invested into research if we're not embedding it really into the organization in a way that it's going to drive impact and action? I think customer salience is the key for success, because it means that you're not wasting your money.
You're making the spend that you've got more efficient.
Absolutely. And more efficient, but also you're making it worth it, because we're not here just, to understand the customer and then forget about it and put it in, our PowerPoints that are sat in an inbox or in a Dropbox. And I feel like, customer salience is the key that is going to open that drawer and let all those insights really breathe and come to life. And the communication side of things is part of that as well, because really, if you want to bring the customer voice to life and make it, in a way that is visceral and authentic, and it's going to resonate, then you're going to have to do so in a way that isn't just through the usual methods that we're seeing at the moment.
So you mentioned earlier about the importance of 2 things, strategy and confidence. What else do you feel that researchers need to understand more about their marketing stakeholders? Might not be marketing stakeholders, could be stakeholders anywhere in the organization. Any top tips in terms of researchers knowing their stakeholders better?
I think that is part of that foundation stage that I was talking to you about earlier. It's understand their day-to-day to start with. We work with big brands that have CEO that shoot from country to country every week. And all they need is a fact sheet of, these are the key things that I need to know about this market that I'm stepping into and about this theme. And they are presented with, those endless decks. So understanding their day-to-day, understanding their challenges, understanding what are the channels of communications that they use, because it might not always be email, What if it's, social? What if they prefer printing things out? It could be anything, but I feel like you need to start by understanding their habits, their challenges, the things that can really make their life easier, because ultimately that's what stakeholders want at that level. It's for their lives to be made easier. And then once you have listened to them in the same way that you would listen to a client, then you act on your findings and you deliver what they've asked.
Iosetta, can you tell us how communication practices are evolving in market research?
Do you want the short answer or the long answer?
I'll have the short one and the long one.
The short one is that they aren't. And the long one is that maybe they are very slowly. Maybe I'm being a bit unfair. I think that there is more attention, slightly more attention. Even just the fact that we're talking about it now, it means that something is moving, right? So I think there is a bit more attention into the conversation around insights, communications, deliverables, marketing. I feel like people are getting to the point where they really see that they need to do something differently. The way that they're evolving practically, it's really stunted, I think, because of lack of knowledge, lack of confidence, as I was saying earlier, lack of direction, budget. I think we have developed great storytelling trainings, which is, perfect foundation. But, those storytelling training are not going to get you necessarily to the point where you're going to feel that you have the skills and the capacity to turn those PowerPoints into something else, or to really think strategically about a communication campaign. I think the storytelling trainings are very much around how to structure your story in however, in the usual PowerPoint format, which is, as we said, it's often not enough, or it's too much. So, I think we need to focus more on going beyond that storytelling to activation, because storytelling doesn't guarantee necessarily the activation of the insights and that change, and doesn't necessarily guarantee customer salience to be brought to life in the organizations. And I think that I've seen, and we have worked with a brand, with a client, we've done a pilot to trial out how AI is supporting us, if at all, in the journey of insights communication. And we're not quite there yet, really. I think, ChatGPT can help you so much. It is a help. It's like, for sure, I'm not denying it, almost as much as, a keyboard is a help, or a screen is a help. Our cell phones are a help, but it's not going to deliver that level of quality that you need at the moment. And we've tested different type of platforms to see if there's something that can make our life easier in that sense, so that, it can help researchers implement those communication strategies on their own independently, or aid them with it. And yeah, we're not quite there yet. We might get to it.
Okay, so Iosetta, a lot of companies talk a really good game about being customer centric, and yet we know from Institute Customer Services and KPMG, Nunwood, etc., that a lot of the time that customer experience really hasn't increased over the last 8 to 10 years. So I'm just interested in your view as to why there's that gap between why why companies are talking a really good game about customer centricity, but there's a real gap to the actual delivery.
Absolutely. I think, as you said, or as you hinted to, customer centricity has become a slogan. It is a slogan. Companies want to be customer centric. The reality is very different. And I think, the reason could be that there are structure in places. The reason could be there are different priorities. The reason could be that there's miscommunication or a lack of communication between the stakeholders and the insights department, which is where we are holding the customer voice, and it's key to the customer centricity conversation. So I think it's in the hands of the insights departments and their responsibility to some extent to understand the stakeholders better. Back to our famed conversation earlier, that foundation part where you take time to do your research and where you take time to understand what is that your audience wants and how is that they are easily engaged. And I think if we are not understanding the way that stakeholders want to be talked to and engaged with, then that customer centricity gap is only getting wider and wider. And also that's why customer salience is so important, because I think that there's so much that you can do there to bridge that insights team and stakeholder gap, bring them together and consequently bring to life that customer centricity and really make it more than just a slogan, but a way of living inside the organization.